Hello guys, and welcome to Ride VIP, the rideshare channel. My name is Serge, and in today's video I want to talk to you guys about buying a Tesla. You guys are probably tired of hearing me talk about it. Just go ahead and buy it already. But anyways, I was asking you earlier about like which one should I get and what should I do and this kind of thing. Basically, I wanted your input and your opinion. But as you all know, there's going to be a new Model 3 coming out. I'm hearing anything from September to like something just like a little bit further away. It should be like a new model coming out. But I'm gonna be watching Elon Musk's event and see what they're gonna unveil. But I was like watching it partly this morning actually. I was watching it live, and they said they're gonna have like 2 new products coming out. Like, and one of them they showed, a version of a car. So I'm thinking they're probably gonna have a sports car version of a Model 3, maybe like a 2-seater. I think that's gonna be interesting to see. I know the Tesla Roadster is supposed to be like that, but I think they might have like a sports car version and some kind of compact version, which might be a sports car version. But anyways. The Model 3 is getting redesigned. I watched some videos on YouTube from some of the leaks, and they look like legit type of redesigns. Not gonna say I'm a complete fan of a redesign, but then again, all new cars, when they get redesigned, sometimes people, it takes time for people to get used to them. I remember when BMW went away from that box, it looked a more curvy look, like for the 5 Series that I had, and lots of people were not ready for that. They thought like BMW was going away from their roots. But the reason I'm saying I'm not too much of a fan of the redesign, I'm not saying for the completely, but lately it's been a style of all automakers to make headlights and taillights thinner. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Everybody's doing it. One thing's for sure, it's going to save a lot of money for them to do it that way. So if they're going to save money and then bring the cost down of the Tesla, sure, I'm all for it, But I kind of liked the idea how the Model 3 lights are. One of you, which is one of my favorite viewers, you said that you don't like, well, you didn't say you don't like it. You think it looks ugly as AF, right? But I'm not sure which model you're talking about. Maybe you're speaking of the Model 3. I actually really like it. If you look at the Model 3 front lights, the way that they're curved and everything, they kind of look like a crossbreed between like a Ferrari and a Porsche light. That's kind of like what it looks like to me. But with the new design light, it just becomes a little bit more skinnier. It just reminds me of the lights that I grew up with back in the 90s, like the Honda Accord light. That's what I had, like a Honda Accord. So the shape becomes very similar. I'm sure it's going to be a much nicer looking light and all. And maybe the leaks are not exactly correct, right, with the way everything is, because I've seen a couple of different photos. Now, it's a possibility that it's gonna be pretty good. Turn this down. I'm almost starting to sneeze. I don't know if it's because of the AC or what, but anyways, in either case, the interior is actually getting a redesign, which I'm a big fan of, because I'm really not a fan of this interior. I mean, I like that it's minimalistic at all, but I think this style interior should be in one of their compacts, not in a Model 3. Model 3 is still more of a sedan, it's just a nice sedan, but the interior is just too cheap. The quality is just not there. Sure, there's a lot of soft things that you could touch in here, which at least it's not plastic, but overall I think all of this stuff is not luxury, including the wood grain. It's really just vinyl sticker, So I just think some people that really got these things, and especially by the time they add on autopilot features and all this other good stuff, these cars became very expensive, like $70,000 to $80,000 car. So when you get a car at that price point, then you look at your interior, you might look at it, you'll say like, well, I got white seats, right? But they're not even real leather. They're just like fake leather seats. I'm not saying that's gonna change in a new model. However, this particular design, whatever they have in here, it's just not all there. I mean, coming from driving like BMWs and stuff, it has way nicer interior for years like 2005, 7. Like the interiors are just like really amazing. This is not. It's more like I guess like almost kind of like a space age interior, minimalistic, if you could really call it that. So it's got that, but I do like this insert that they have here, which is kind of like suede. It feels like real suede. I don't know if that's like real suede, but they did a good job with that. But the seats themselves, they feel fake to me. Like when I touch them, they feel fake, and I could only imagine that with years to come, these seats are gonna start drying out, and it's gonna like the rubber itself is gonna start drying out, I think. And they're gonna look like something like vinyl leather seats from back in the day, like something like 1965 Mustangs used to have, and they're gonna crack, and it's just not gonna be fun. But who knows? Maybe vegan leather is good. I don't know. We'll see. Or maybe it's just a good way of saying pleather. But the new Tesla Model 3 that's redesigned, the interior is getting redesigned, and it might get a yoke steering wheel. It's gonna have some interior lighting, which is like different type of light accents, which I think is kind of cool, because looking at some Mercedes, that's kind of like the EV style. They also have some interior lights, like little lines of glow, which is kind of cool. So I think I'm still better off waiting till that model comes out. Just go ahead and get that model. It might even be a good idea to wait till next year, because the $7,500 tax credit is going to be applied right after sticker price, which is great. So that $7,500 tax rebate definitely makes the car a lot more value, in my opinion, because it just becomes so much less. I've looked at Teslas that they had in stock, and they're already like heavily discounted, because usually, I mean, they're already discounted, right, when you order them. But some of them, they're already made and they're brand new, and they're like $3,000 less or more. So I thought like that was like really cool. Now, with that being said, the car prices, we were in a bubble of the car pricing market, like because of the chip shortage. That's going away, and lots of manufacturers are producing lots of cars, so the car market's gonna be flooded with cars. So I think if I wait till like Q4 or till the end of it, even of this year, the pricing should get even better, just because the competition to get the electric cars will be so great. And I think up until that point, I could just rent this Tesla, and I could just drive it whenever I want. I could always give it back, which is nice. And I look at everything, I'm thinking like, man, like seriously, I don't feel like I'm overpaying for this car at all, renting it. I know you guys said you should just give it back and get yourself a car and stuff like that. But let's look at it this way. The car is costing me right now $65 or less per day. I'm charging it at home fully. I'll leave to work, and then I come back and I charge it at the house again. So I decided to calculate the miles again, like just what I did Sunday. And of course I have overall miles too, but just Sunday alone, 466 miles. That's with commuting. That's with me leaving my home, driving, and then coming back home. So I take pictures of my odometer of the Tesla screen. So I drive quite a bit of miles. So you guys said get yourself a 40 mile per gallon car. That's going to be good. Well, it is good if you don't use it all the time. Like, maybe you use it every other day, or maybe you use it on the weekend. In that case, it's good as far as the economy goes, but you're also making less money unless you're doing something else. But I always like to look at the optimum amount of time that I could use the car. For instance, when I rent this car, of course I'm going to use it. I'm going to use it every day. I'm going to try to put as many miles on it as I can. And that's because I'm trying to make the most amount of money. But it's not necessarily how it goes. It's not sometimes by putting on so many miles. I'm doing some cherry picking when it comes to rideshare. So I was doing lots of cherry picking, and yesterday, oh boy, yesterday I've done very well. However, I was like really surprised how bad I did driving for Uber on a Sunday, and I only made like $170, which I was like really surprised. I'm like, what? I think it was like 177. So $177, 177. But then I did personal rides. You know how much I did in personal rides, guys? 232 actually. 232. So I made $409 on a Sunday because I was doing cherry picking, but then I was doing also personal rides. Usually on Sunday I never do this well, like never. So I made some videos about how I do some personal rides. I will upload them, guys, as we're going along. But with that being said, let's get back to 466 miles that I drove yesterday. If we'll take this now, by the way, I'm an autopilot, so this I love this about Teslas. I'm watching everything, I can see everything. There's 8 cameras looking out for me outside, and I can just touch the steering wheel a little bit. So 466 miles, right? Let's say I got a 40 mile per gallon car divided by 40. I would use 11.65 gallons. Let's times it by $3.35, even though I think fuel prices for the regular is even higher. So it means it would cost me $39 to operate a 4-cylinder car, which is great. The thing about it is, if you have a $4,000 or $5,000 car that qualifies for Uber and it's a 40 mile per gallon car, it is definitely great because you don't have to always use it. But then again, if you did use it, you wouldn't be watching this channel either way, because this is a rideshare channel, and we're just talking about rideshare. So if you don't really work in rideshare, that means you're not going to make that much money in rideshare. But if you're going to be doing something else, you're not going to be on this channel anyway. So I have to look at it from the perspective of everybody. If we're doing rideshare, we want to optimize the amount of money we make per that time spent. So according to the rental, I'm spending right now $65. So yes, that's $25 more than having a 40 mile per gallon car, but we're talking about a car that you own anyways. So this is why I want to get back to this other thing. So basically I'm spending $415 per week renting this car. So let's times that by 4 weeks. It's $1,660. That's what I'm paying for the Tesla. So I just compared a 40 mile per gallon car to like that you own for cash versus a car that you have a payment. Now, of course, if the car has a payment, you have to take that into consideration. And I'm just not going to do that. I'm going to compare it to the car that you actually own, like without having payments. But if you have to have payments on top of that, then you're better off just getting a Tesla, in my opinion. But anyways, $1,160 for the rental. But how much is a $37,000 Tesla worth with like $1,000 down payment at 9.99 APR? That payment is like $780 per month. So you divide that into 4. So that means it's only costing $195 per week. to operate this thing. So now, you know, now we're talking. So $195 is all that the car is actually costing me. I just had a phone call. So anyways, we're at $195 per day, per week. So let's divide that into 7 days. So it means it's costing me $27.85. That's a car payment. Plus we had $5 for charging, leaves me with $32.85. If you see that I'm incorrect somewhere in this type of mathematical calculation, I'm not like a mathematician or anything, but as a businessman, I always have to look out for my best interest all the time. And according to my calculation, instead of driving a used car and it's costing me $39 a day in fuel for driving the same amount of miles, I could be driving a brand new Tesla for the price of $32.85. So please tell me what is wrong with that picture. But while you're typing away, I'm gonna tell you what's wrong with this with this picture in my comment section. The only thing that's wrong is that if I well, it actually becomes a little bit better, as we say, because there's many ways of looking at it. So one of the ways is that, like, something that I've always talked about is that don't buy a new car to use for rideshare. You're gonna put in a lot of miles on it, and you're gonna lose your warranty. That's gonna cost you lots of money. So here I am trying to decide about buying a Tesla Model 3. So you might be thinking like, well, what's wrong with that? Like, why are you buying a new Tesla if you're gonna put miles on it all the same way? And that's because, as you could see, the usage miles are so much less than a car that you would buy that's 4-cylinder brand new. So a brand new 4-cylinder car, let's say a Prius, is a worse value than it comes to buying a brand new Tesla. You're gonna put miles on it the same way. Tesla per mile still will cost you less. Therefore, you could actually pay it off quicker, especially if I double down and I just like pay it off. Like, I'll just like do like the double payment. I could pay it off like probably like within like 4 years, because I'll save lots of money on the interest. So let's say this, okay? So I just calculated the cost, okay? This is kind of important. So it's costing me $32.85. Guys, what comes next, you're gonna want to hear this. $32.85 per day. How many days in a year? 365 times 365. So I will spend $11,992 per year, Tesla payment and Tesla charging. And of course, I'm gonna rake up the miles. It's gonna have, let's say, like 150,000 miles. But how much did I make per those 150,000 miles? So there's a very good chance I made $1 per each of those miles, because I'm trying to look at the whole picture. So that means I made 150 grand using that car. You know, probably gonna make less, I understand, because some of these are gonna be like personal miles, because the commuting is not really, you know, counting for that. And also I might actually drive less than this whole thing, but that also means I have less miles. Well, let's just say, hypothetically speaking, if I did put 150,000 miles on it, so I just take away $12,000 from that, so I still made $138,000 on top of that payment, if I'm making $1 per mile on those miles. Now, if you're doing a little bit better, let's say like $2 a mile, like you're cherry picking, well, you just did even better. You just double this amount, or you made the same amount in 6 months. Guys, it's kind of like windy here. It looks like it's gonna be like, I don't know, like a tornado or something. It all of a sudden became very dark, very windy, so that's kind of interesting. So why am I only taking the first year into account versus taking all 5 years into account? Because after all, you'll have a Tesla payment for 5 years, and that's because The very first year, you'll probably still drive, probably like with no problems. You'll do okay, right? So you make all that money in the first year. So first year minus, $12,000. That's with the whole operating cost. You still have 4 years remaining with similar type of cost. Yeah, there's like little tree limbs like flying with some leaves and stuff. Like, what's going on here? But anyway, so I just deducted $12,000, but we need to deduct another $48,000 from this, minus $48,000, and I'm left with $90,000. There's a tree that's down. I have no choice but to drive partially on its limbs. There's like little pieces of like tree debris that's flying. Yeah, kind of crazy. Let me see if I could show you. That's kind of like what it looks like, guys. Look at that. That's the benefit of recording with the Samsung phone. Hit pause, and I can switch cameras, camera angles. Yeah, there's more tree debris on the floor here, little pieces. But anyways, guys, I'm left with $90,000 in that first year. After, let's say I pay off the whole car. Like, if you play it smart, you take all that money and you just pay off the car within that first year from all the money that you make. Now, of course, there's gonna be living expenses, but the most important thing is that the car technically still paid you back for itself. So that's important. And you could use that money for whatever. If you decide to pay off the car, you pay off the car. If you decide not to pay it off, you don't pay it off. But what I'm saying is, the money is there for you to pay it off. And I guess the same can be said for a 40 mile per gallon car. You could do exactly the same thing. But one thing with a 40 mile per gallon car that you have to think about is there's additional expenses. There's gonna be all kinds of oil changes you gotta do. At 60,000 miles, you're gonna have to do your water pump. At 150, definitely gonna need to do your starter. Your alternator could fail by this time. You gotta do your spark plugs at 100,000. There's a very good chance that your ignition coils could fail already many times during the course of those times. You could have a new alternator by the time, definitely a new belt, new pulleys, new tensioner, and I'm just talking about like the basic stuff. And you would probably already go through 3 sets of tires at least. Tesla will too go through some tires. Not saying that much, but you'll definitely be on your second set of brakes for both front and back, and there's gonna be like additional stuff. So there's additional expenses when it comes down to owning a 4-cylinder car, guys. So 4-cylinder or 8-cylinder doesn't matter. Internal combustion engine car just has more parts that can fail, and this is something that is not fun. Obviously, something we have to deal with when we buy cars. But when you get a Tesla, you just don't worry about that stuff. Like, you don't have to even check like nothing. Like, you just basically drive. That's all. So this is a perfect car for having the optimum amount of driving without sitting in a shop somewhere for like weeks on end. Sure, it might have some issues. I don't know. Like, it might have some issues that's gonna be under warranty. That's gonna need to be replaced. But internal combustion engine, guys, some of the stuff that you think is under warranty is really not. You might be thinking like fuel injectors covered. They're not. That's not covered. A friend of mine bought a brand new Mercedes Sprinter diesel van. All his injectors failed, I think, like at 27,000 miles somehow. I don't know what happened, but that happened. He had to pay for them, like $13,000. So, sometimes they say bumper to bumper. Really what they mean is, the head, the block, the transmission is going to last, but all the external components, it's not covered. So you'll still be at the dealer trying to replace that stuff. And whenever you buy the car, the dealer will tell you, yeah, it's covered. Like, you're good. It's really not, So the wear components, they're wear components. They're not covered. So Well, anyways, this video turned into a discussion about what car versus what, and I feel like I already made a similar video. But the thing is, you have to understand kind of like where I'm coming from when looking at a Tesla, even from a perspective of me being able to use this car for like rideshare and trying to get the most out of it. There's a car in front of me.